Hey, good evening, everybody. I was fully intending on using a different lectionary reading each time for the discussion kickoffs for our online small group, but something just keeps popping up for me that I can't ignore, so I wanted to share it. And last week we discussed really briefly on how the definition of neighbor drastically changes with the online world. Well, I was playing some games with friends this week online, and we were smack talking each other as usual. And something popped into my head regarding something we talked about last week regarding the eighth commandment. And the eighth commandment is you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And at the surface level, we can say that this simply means not to tell lies about other people, but in Luther's Small Catechism, he takes it a step further. He says, we are to fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbors, betray or slander them, or destroy their reputations. Instead, we are to come to their defense, speak well of them, and interpret everything they do in the best possible light. And this made me think of how often my friends and I belittle one another. And sure, we do this at a competition in the games we play, and we say that it's all good fun, but if it hurts someone, is it really any less harmful since we're still choosing to do it? And I'll be honest, in the past, I've kind of taken the stance that if someone's going to trash talk, they should also be willing to receive it as well. Yet, in doing this, isn't this modeling more of the harm we're called to try to heal in the world? And maybe video games and trash talk aren't your thing. Maybe it's not a part of your context. But what about social media? How often do we do the opposite of trash talk and portray our lives as perfect in order to elevate ourselves above our friends? Maybe the trash talking is on social media instead of on a game. The platform may change, but we're still causing harm to one another in those interactions. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 48, Jesus talks about loving our enemies, and it's one of the most well-known passages in the Bible. But Jesus says, you have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So what if we apply that last line to the internet? That be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Our best example of how to live a life according to God is Jesus. So not to be cliche and go back to the 90s, but what would Jesus loving a neighbor look like in an online world? And to that same point, what would it look like for you to model it in a way that's authentic to who you are? And that's what we're going to talk about this evening.